Well, I had to make the trek when it was like when the roads were really underwater.
Yeah.
We ran out of toilet paper, and I'm like, we can't have that, bro. So we had to go out.
Just get your least favorite socks.
Least favorite? No. Oh Lord. Well, I do got some Tulane Green Wave socks for some reason at the house. Don't know where they came from.
That's pretty random.
Yeah, Uriah wore them for football practice, didn't he? The Tulane Green Waves.
It's about the most random.
Don't even know where they come from. They're cool though. The Green Wave logo is actually pretty cool.
I like Tulane. All right, I like them small schools.
So, y'all voted overwhelmingly for some folklore this week, and that's what's about to happen. We are about to dig into some West Virginia / Appalachian folklore all week. All 3 episodes, that's what it's going to be. If you guys like it, we will dig into some more. So, but first, before we start on that, we kind of have a little tradition here on the basement where we give out shout-outs. And I have a shout-out, and Hunter, I'm sure you're going to jump on this with me because you was the coach with me on this team, is I was at Montcalm Elementary this on Friday for a little Valentine's get-together, and I had one of my players come up to me and said, "Hey, Andrew, I watch your stuff on YouTube." And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And then I realized, like, man, I really got to make sure I'm not being a bad example. So I want to throw it out to one of the best linemen I've ever coached. One of the most, had the biggest heart. One of the fastest players out there on our team. Never gave up, never quit. And it's football, and she's a girl. She was whipping all them boys. She's whipping them all. So, with that being said, I want to say, Paisley Pruitt, thank you for watching. That's your shout-out. My shout-out of the week goes to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Shout out to you, Paisley.
You want to go next?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Drew's got a pretty good shout-out, so go for it, big dog.
My shout-out actually isn't a person, and I think you guys are actually going to appreciate my shout-out.
Who, Cincinnati?
Nope. My shout-out is actually going to be to WVU for paying Neil Brown so much. And with his buyout, that if he were to take another job, it would cancel his buyout. So he's taking the entire. I'm not gonna lie, I legit thought that you were. I'm just gonna play my mic.
No, you're good. The mic kind of went back on you. Sorry about that.
But shout out to WVU for Neil Brown's buyout. He's making so much money this year that he doesn't even want to look at it or entertain jobs this year. He's just going to take the whole year off and collect WVU's money and not do anything.
Maybe he needs to trust the climb.
Maybe you should trust the climb.
Embrace the climb.
So it's looking like, hopefully by the time this one airs, they're going to announce Tech's new offensive coordinator. But it's looking like he was William and Mary's offensive coordinator.
The Tribe?
Yep.
The Tribe?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
And he's currently at Buffalo Bills. He's an assistant for defense right now, but they're getting ready to hire him as the offensive coordinator. They're in the process of finalizing that.
You can hire a defense guy to coordinate your offense.
No, he was one of those people that, like, he would work with the defensive coordinator, so the defensive coordinator would be like, okay, so this is what we're going to do from your offensive perspective. How would you attack this? And they bounce off like that. So he was like a defensive analysis or something is the way they word it.
Well,
but they said that while he was at William and Mary, he was known for having a...
I'm not going to boo you. I'm just trying to get stuff off the mixer.
So I don't get accidentally booed. I'm going to hit the screen the next time you talk.
No, I'm sorry. But no, I mean, that's pretty... That's a pretty good interaction.
So our first West Virginia folklore we're going to talk about is these graphic Andrew's pants.
There's basement frogs. The basement flooded. And there's been frogs chirping back here in this back corner. I don't know what's going on.
Are they dead? Is that what explains the smell?
I'm sorry. Oh, God, I can't believe that just happened.
Yes, you can. You've been doing it all night. Why are you surprised now?
It's like back when we was going through, when we was playing up in Northern Virginia, when they were saying, gas, gas, gas. All right, sorry to cut your
I pretty much got it. Shout out to WVU for paying Neil Brown so much. He did take the VT offensive coordinator job.
It is interesting though that a defensive guy's coming over to the offensive side. So
Well,
I'm
he has
interested.
He has an offensive background.
Like I'm interested to see how that's going to go. Like for real.
I'm still holding out hope that you hire Neil Brown.
Nah, they've already said. I read multiple places because that was like my worst nightmare. I read multiple places that said he is not interested in taking a job. He's just gonna keep his WVU money.
I mean, if somebody's going to pay me a couple $1 million to sit at the house,
Hey,
hey, I wouldn't even. You could look for real though. You could tell me you give me $50,000 to stay at the house. Your boy ain't leaving the front door.
hey, the Cardinals head coach a few years back, Arizona Cardinals.
Mhm.
I forgot what his name was, but he's the one that's like the offensive coordinator for the Commanders now, I believe.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
So
He's at
whenever
Texas
they
Tech,
fired
too.
him,
Mhm.
he had like a massive buyout like that, and it was for like 2 years. So they still had to pay him. They said that the day he got fired, he changed his number and went on vacation out of the country, so that way nobody else could contact him through that coaching cycle. So he made sure he got paid to sit out a year.
Jimbo Fisher's the same way. He's making like $7 million to like 2031 or something like that. But hey, let's go back to his shout out because I don't want sports to dominate this. This is Folklore Week. Drew, who is your shout out? I'm interested to hear.
My shout out of the week is to Emily, your wife. You know,
Look at the camera. Give her a look.
You've been really supportive through this whole process. You even said that we look great on camera, that we all look slimmer. Isn't that what she said?
No, she said we all need to lose weight.
No, that's not what she said.
She wouldn't say that about us, right?
She also said that we should have a score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Ain't that what she
She
said?
did say we should have a score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Can't get no more supportive than that. Let's give her a hand, guys.
Yeah.
Hold on. Where is that?
What?
We gotta get better with
The
this.
clap. The clap.
Yeah.
This. I know y'all can't hear it on YouTube. This looks terrible so far. So without further ado, let's jump into our first. This is going to be West Virginia folklore. Something that it's crazy to me that a place like this was still running in the 90s.
Yeah, it is crazy.
In the 90s, this place was still running. This place was at one point. It was opened up due to a lot of the mental health people in America were just thrown in prison or chained into a hole in their basement or actually literally thrown in a hole in the backyard or chained to the wall. They was usually beaten, abused, taken advantage of, and then I don't have the names on everything because I mean I do, but I just can't remember them. And then they come up with this idea to build this asylum, if you will. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is what we're talking about. It started out before the Civil War in Virginia. It was going to be in Weston, Virginia. However, during the Civil War, it was converted into a Civil War fort.
Mm-hmm.
And they did have a couple patients there at that time, like 10, and then West Virginia converted over, and they still kept it in West Virginia as the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Drew, you want to take it over from here?
Yeah, so it was constructed between the years of 1858 and 1881. It is also the largest hand-cut stone building in the United States. And I think
North America.
In North America, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the second largest in the world right behind Kremlin.
The Kremlin in Moscow.
Yep. So, it was originally designed to house 250 people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Civil War history there, like you hinted on. But it reached its peak in the 50s, and there was 2,400 patients in that building.
Actually, I read it was 26.
26.
They went back and re-updated that. It was over 2,600. They wasn't inmates either. These were patients.
Yeah.
So,
and the thing is, if you go back and look at that, like some of the requirements for it, like some of the people that were in there for like some major things. Like, literally stuff like depression could put you in there. Like, literally, if you were just sad too long, they would throw you in there.
I've read that for a lot of husbands, if they really just got tired of their wives, they just made up stuff. And was it like mania, menstrual cramps, menstrual... I mean, I'm a man, so I don't know exactly what all you go through. Just like hormonal changes, you literally get your wife thrown in there, and then you don't got to deal with her no more, Interesting. Interesting. Don't know if you're listening, Emily.
But no. So there was a lot of controversial practices that were performed in that asylum. It was actually called the Weston State Hospital.
Yeah, they changed it
Yeah.
because they said the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is what they wanted to call it for a very short time, and then the word lunatic started to get a lot of bad press, they didn't really like it, so they went to Western State Hospital, right?
Yeah.
The Weston State Hospital is what they changed it to, which is the new owners bought it for, was it 1.5 million?
Yeah, it wasn't a lot. Oh, well, I mean, I guess
It was 1.5 million, and they changed it back to Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum to kind of keep the lore to it. But do you know, like, I know we're fast forwarding a lot, but all the ghost, because you can go ghost hunting there, you can do historical events and everything there.
Yeah.
You know, all the money that the people make from that go right back into restoring and fixing the building.
That's awesome.
Every bit of the money goes back into it.
Man, that's cool.
So
Sorry to interrupt you.
no, you're good. So it officially opened to patients in 1864. And like I said, it peaked in the 50s because, like we talked about, you could pretty much have somebody put in there for nothing. You know, you just make up something on somebody. But I guess the treatment that they were very famous, or I won't say famous, I'll say notorious for was
Ice pick lobotomies?
Yeah, lobotomy, frontal lobotomies.
Yeah.
Because they said that was like their cure all for mental health conditions was a lobotomy, and instead what really happened was it obviously
Made them worse.
made them worse, or killed them.
Made them very lethargic, but
So-
they just wasn't there.
Yeah, so there's been like historical documents found where they documented patients after frontal lobotomies and they exhibited schizophrenic behavior. I mean, the list goes on and on. But who knows what it actually was back then? Because I mean, let's be honest, they're giving people lobotomies, you know. So who knows if they even know what they were talking about? But,
Well, I've read a little bit of what they did, and what they would do is they would literally take an ice pick,
Yeah.
and put it at their eye, and just, and when they would chip in there, they would just wiggle it around. And a lot of times, these people were never put to sleep.
Yeah.
They were wide awake when this happened to them. And this, at one time, there was a traveling doctor that was his thing. He done over 200 some in 2 weeks, and he would charge $25 per
Wow.
lobotomy.
Look, I don't
And
know when that was, but I know regardless of when it was, $25 around that time. It's probably a good chunk of change for that
Yeah.
time.
Well, not only that, a lot of times these people that it was done to, it was without consent. It was without, a lot of times they would have to check with the family members to get them to do it, to see if it's all right. They wouldn't check the family members, or they would tell the family members that they were going to do something, but they wouldn't tell them what it was. So this was pretty much like they just did it to these people. And, you would have people that would literally just walk down the hallways, just not even have any life to them anymore.
So the building itself has like what, 4 floors or
Well,
5?
I don't know how many floors this
I think
got.
it's 4.
I think that's
But if you look at the pictures, man, there was several sections of it was very nice. They had rocking chairs out for the people there. I mean, it looked very nice. I mean, it was a state-of-the-art building in its time.
yeah.
You know,
They designed it as a V shape with staggering, so such natural light and everything could get into every single room, because at that time the premise behind the mental asylum was they wanted good, because they said the light, the nature, everything there in that area, because it's a wooded area,
Yeah.
is what a mental health patient needs. So the premise behind it was good, but with everything, the overcrowding and everything just went in and caused everything to get bad.
and there's not too much information on like who started performing these lobotomies there.
Yeah, and I think that should be like one of the most terrifying things. Cause
Yeah.
like, just how far back does that go then? I mean, if It opened in what, 1863? Is that what you said?
1864.
1864.
Yeah, and the more weird thing on the dates to me is that it didn't close until 1994.
Yeah.
And that it
That's-
also devastated that town's economy when it closed, and the town still hasn't recovered from it. I mean, they may be working on it now that people are coming there.
I mean, that's 130 years that was open.
Yeah, I mean,
Which, I mean,
And think
in
about
the,
it, that's a very, like, that time frame too. Like, I mean, 130 years is a massive time frame regardless when you look at, but especially during that time, like, you know, you're talking about literally from Civil War to 1990s.
yeah.
Like, that, there was a lot of changes throughout the world during that time. Like, everything changed.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, it's still been open in 94. Just think about the things that could have still been going on there,
exactly.
you know, because I think a lot of the historical records were lost.
Yeah.
I say lost like that. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened, but to me, anytime records get lost, somebody had something to hide. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, especially anything
And-
involving, like, medical and sketchy
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, and don't fact check us on that. But
Do you know how many acres Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum sits on?
I don't.
Isn't it like 1,200 or something?
No.
How much is it?
It is 666 acres.
Jesus.
That's,
There's literally, when it was opened, there's 3 cemeteries on the property. Now, if that doesn't tell you that a lot of people were dying, I mean, you gotta think, these rooms were designed for one person to live in. There was, at one time I read, up to 20 people living in one room, where some people were literally just laying in the floor. The way the design was is one side was for male and one side was for females. The outer edges is where the hardened criminals really went. Well, I said criminals, I'm sorry. Hardened patients, they were not criminals. They were patients, were on the outer wings. And
but they were actually treated basically like prisoners.
yeah, they were
like, in,
chained
like,
to the
jail.
wall. They
And
were chained.
They had like actual jail cells in them too.
Yeah, they were chained to the walls. Well, so I'm sure there was some people in there that did,
Yeah.
we'll get into it, that did do, criminal activity and they were thrown there. Not discrediting that. But they were chained to the walls in their own filth, probably rarely eaten. Let's just be honest. If the place is designed for 250 patients and it has 2,600, you're not going to have the resources. Like I read in one report where it was actually designed to be self-sufficient. However, self-sufficient for 250 patients versus 2,600 patients, it's not going to work. We know
Yeah.
that.
In the video that was posted to our YouTube and TikTok, just the short video, there was a picture put on there of beds in the hallways.
Mm-hmm.
They were just lined up like, almost like in a prison. What do you call those? Where all the bunks are together in one room?
Like a dorm.
A dorm. Yeah.
Dorm.
Yeah, that's what it was like. I mean, it was just beds for people, and that was the only space they got. So imagine if they were actually a mental health patient, and you're just this close to somebody all the time. Like I don't even like being that close to people all the time, you know. So I mean, imagine the state of things that must have been in there.
That means that you got somebody's foot or head right beside your head whenever you're trying to sleep,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
I mean, not only that, you had that many people. Your sanitation goes down tremendously.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
So therefore, you had diseases. At one point, they had a tuberculosis outbreak where it even affected the entire town of Weston, because they thought in order to fix it, you just take them outside and put them in the sun. But what doesn't tell you is they were doing this year round. So even if it was like, we live in West Virginia, we know how cold it gets in the wintertime.
Yeah.
They were taking these people out probably in 10, 15 degree weather and leaving them outside for hours.
I think at one point, wasn't it actually a tuberculosis hospital? At one point in its history, if I'm not mistaken.
It's just where everybody had it there.
I
it was
thought that
just
at
so
one point
prevalent.
it was actually designated as a tuberculosis hospital.
I'm not 100% on that. I'm not gonna. I don't know. But there's a lot of what we're getting at is there was a lot of death. There was a lot of suffering. There was a lot of things. There was a lot of abuse. A lot of the staff, is accused of brutalizing these people. I know that the superintendent that ran it, I think it was like 1899, actually went on trial for sexually abusing the female patients. And get this, he was innocent, found innocent, even though there was overwhelmingly amount of proof and evidence to prove that he did it. He was still innocent of the charges.
That's crazy.
So,
Karma has a way of working with people like that, though, I do believe.
right. So, with that being said, we'll go into one of the crazy things that happened there. And, I can't speak about my professional life, but I kind of understand this next topic is there was one time, they used to have to do rounds throughout the entire asylum. Mm-hmm. On night shift one night, there was a nurse that went and done rounds. And she went on one wing, she had to go by herself because there was no other staff there. She went to this wing. An hour later, the other nurses were like, where'd she go? She hasn't come back yet. So they waited. A couple hours later, went searching. Couldn't find her at all. Do you know when they finally found this nurse? It's like 3 or 4 months later in an unused stairwell. And the only reason why they found it is because of the stench of her decomposed body. One of the patients got a hold of her and sexually abused her and murdered her. And left her in the stairwell.
Wow.
That also happened with a... sorry, it was my phone. That also happened with the actual patient there that was went missing for a long time. Never found him. For months and months later, found him in another unused stairwell, dead.
How many unused stairwells did they have at that point?
We got to think there wasn't enough staff, so they probably never went to those sides of the wings. They just went real quick, walking down. Okay, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here. Another thing is there was a patient. There was a patient that was brought in that I can't remember his name, but he wasn't much wrong with him, right?
Yeah.
They put him in a room with 2 patients that really had mental health issues, and they tortured this man to the fact where they tried to hang him multiple times, and they was unsuccessful. So they took the metal. I know this is gonna be graphic. They took the metal bed frame and just beat his head in. And they said when you go in, like when you're doing the ghost hunt, when you go into that room, you can feel the presence of that one ghost. You know how they use, I don't know the name of the equipment, that you can communicate with them?
The spirit box? Or
I think it's like that, but there's like an official name for it.
Well, they have like the spirit box, and then they have like, I forgot what the other one is, but like...
I'm not a ghost hunter, so... But the presence there, but it doesn't say anything.
Oh, probably the EMF, the one where it like spikes and lets you know that there is a presence there or something.
But there's no communication.
Yeah, that's probably the EMF then.
There's been a lot of famous ghost hunters have went there.
Pretty much
it used to be on TV. Yeah.
Pretty much if you watch anything involving ghost hunters, pretty much all of them have been there. Mm-hmm. Like Ghost Adventures, probably the most popular one. They went there their first season.
Yeah. Well, it's a National Historic Landmark now, but it's also on the top 10 list of America's most haunted places. But it is actually number 2 in West Virginia. Lake Shawnee is number 1. But there are some ghosts that are part of West Virginia folklore there. They have names. People's named them. Or maybe that was who they actually think it is. Maybe communication from the spirit has told them the name.
I think a lot of it comes down to they try to link it to tragic events they know that happened in that certain area because they're the ones that's most likely to leave a spirit behind.
Yeah. So for example, one of them's name is Lily. She's a little girl. She likes to play with toys. They say if you roll the ball to the room that she's in, that she'll roll it back to you.
I actually just was watching a ghost show about Trans-Allegheny the other day, and in the room that she's in, people actually bring her toys. Yeah. So that room is full of toys now.
Yeah, I put a picture of that up too.
And they said that depending on the day, she plays with different toys.
Yeah.
The ball is the most common one that I've heard. I've heard that you could be on if she knows that you're doing a tour and you're at the other end of the hallway. They said it's not uncommon for a ball or something to roll out of her door, basically trying to get your attention to try to come play with her.
Yeah. They also said that sometimes she'll use like a music box. Can
Yeah.
you imagine being in there and hearing that music box start to go off?
Boy, have you?
Kid ghosts are the worst ghosts, man. They're the scariest, hands down.
There is an unconfirmed story about Lily of where she came from. And it's unconfirmed. I was listening to a podcast earlier today on Apple. I can't remember the name of it, or I'd shout them out. But it states that it was a woman who was dropped off there, and the reports are that the husband was either cheating on her and didn't want her, or she got cheated on, or she got raped by some Civil War soldiers and taken there. It's very unclear. There's multiple reports, but she was pregnant, and when she gave birth to Lily, she died, and they didn't know what to do with her, so they kept her there at the asylum. They kept her there until she was 9 years old, and she ended up passing away due to pneumonia. That is a backstory that I've listened. It did say that it is unconfirmed, so it is one report.
Because you don't really hear too much about like a lot of kids being in there, which I mean, it's horrible like anything that happened there, but it'd be worse to think that if there was a bunch of kids running around and it.
I would imagine there probably was. I mean, because you got to think, even to me, a kid's still under 21 to me. You know?
I don't know. I'd say almost you could argue 25 at this point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but that story, even though it's unconfirmed, I mean, it makes sense because one thing that is historically known is that there was a raid during the Civil War time. You said that it's possible that she may have been raped by Civil War soldiers and brought there. They did raid the entire hospital. They stole all the clothes meant for incoming patients. They stole all the food they had. They stole everything and took off. So there is historical evidence of Civil War raids in that area. So
and just think about that. Like you got, I mean, it's a Civil War. That's still your people. They were still Americans. Yeah. And soldiers, and I don't know which side it was, but soldiers are raiding and taking food away from American patients.
Yeah.
That's insane to me. Just some of the horrors though that come out of this is just unreal.
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, I know it's spooky or whatever, but it's almost depressing, and honestly, because of how bad the people were treated. I mean, I don't necessarily think that they meant for that to happen. It just kind of did. You know, I mean, I'm not taking up for anybody. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I don't feel like that, you know, it was something intentional. You know, it just kind of happened, you know, but when they started performing lobotomies on people, you know, I mean, but at the time they thought that was.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody was going crazy and fighting all the time, you do a lobotomy on them, and now they're just walking around like a zombie in their head. That's a less of a headache. Yeah, they fixed it.
Yeah. So another famous ghost in Appalachian folklore is Elizabeth. I don't know if you guys read anything about Elizabeth.
I have not.
But she is the lady that is said to roam the hallways. I've heard that she was a caretaker. I mean, she was a patient at the hospital. I've read conflicting reports, so I'm not 100% sure exactly what her role was, whether it was just a patient or whether she did have some kind of caretaking role there. But it's, for whatever reason, she roams the hallways. And they said that if you're in the hallways of the asylum and she passes through, you get really cold. Some people have said that they saw her in, you know, spirit, in the ghost form, or however you say that. But, you know, so she's the most famous one that has communicated with them, that I guess has told them her name, and she roams up and down the hallways and the stairwells.
I think she's the one that like has confirmed her name with like multiple people too.
Yeah.
It's not like just once.
I think she's very vocal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have Dean.
That Dean is one of the ones that murdered the guy I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, isn't he like one of the more aggressive ones?
I thought Dean was the one that got murdered.
It may have been.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, you know, there's a lot of the spirits there that are like on like the friendlier side, and then there's some that are very hostile there too.
So they say that he will communicate with you in his room that he was in when he passed away. They say you can go in there. He's openly, you know, hey, this is my name, and he tries to say other things, but there's not been really anything confirmed to what he's trying to say.
Just his name.
And then there is also Slewfoot. That's a monster that's said to roam the grounds. Like you mentioned earlier, there's how many cemeteries out there?
3.
And, you know, they say this monster roams the entire property, which is 666 acres. So whether you believe in that type of thing, you know, I'm not sure what Slewfoot would look like. I didn't really get much on that end of it.
I haven't read a whole lot about that one. So,
But then they say there's spirits of the sadistic patients that were there, and they say that, you know, they come to people in the form of dark shadows. You feel actually physically ill. You get very uncomfortable. I mean,
people actually reported like being attacked, like scratched,
yeah,
and stuff like
scratched, yeah. So I mean, you know, they say that there's always activity there, and it's believed to be in the 5-figure range of people that died in this hospital, in this building. So I mean, you know, you think about the way that spirits get left behind, how things get haunted. I mean, you have that many people that's died in one place. I mean, there was times that the morgue, the coolers would be full, so they just had bodies just covered up and lined up in the hallway that goes to the morgue. I mean, that's just insane, you know.
It is. It's something you see on movies.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing, man, is people see this on movies. It happened. Stuff like this truly happened. And this is, and the sad part about it is, this is how America and the rest of the world thought they were solving mental health issues.
Yeah.
There's another real popular ghost that you see in this asylum. They're called crawlers. Have you read about them? Basically, it's real dark shadows that stay on their bellies and crawl, but you only see them in like the furthest corner of the room, any room that you're in, and they're hostile. But they crawl. When you see them, they crawl and go straight out of the room. It's very prevalent up in the lunatic asylum. I read a lot about that. Called the crawlers.
I just want to let y'all know that when we go make content at this place, if I see something crawling, I'm done.
Yeah, that is another thing that's coming up. We're wanting to go to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. We live in West Virginia. It's not far from us.
I have actually been there once. I didn't get to go inside. It was closed. But when I pulled up on the 4th floor, a light came on. I'm not even close to joking. I was in the parking lot of the building. I used to have a picture. I'd have to dig way through my phone to find it. But pulled up to the front of the building, was looking at it, and I honestly felt uncomfortable. Like it felt like something
There was people watching you.
Yeah,
like
like
multiple people.
It felt really heavy. You know what I mean? Like I could, and I'll be honest, I am a skeptical person when it comes to this kind of stuff. I feel like I'm the guy that tries to look for an explanation as to why that happened.
Right.
You know, what that noise was, what could have caused it, et cetera, et cetera. But I did physically feel different. Like I felt uncomfortable. So, I mean, I am looking forward to going in. But I'm telling you right now.
The messed up part about all this is that if you actually look at the building, it's actually a gorgeous looking building.
Oh, it is. It's beautiful.
That's what I've read, that it just doesn't look like it should represent what it is.
Which, I mean, I feel the same way, though. I mean, I know we're going to talk about this later on, but like Moundsville, like the West Virginia State Penitentiary, it is also another beautiful looking building. Like, I mean, we say that, but at the time it was built to be intimidating, but architecturally, I think it's a gorgeous looking building.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest with you, down in Marion, Virginia, the old mental health hospital down there, it's intimidating when you go and look at it. I think so. It gives you that creepy feeling.
Yeah.
When you see the Trans-Allegheny, like if you're looking at pictures, you're like, wow, this is a nice place.
Yeah,
but
if I was a patient and I was, you know, like an asylum patient, and I saw that, I was like, oh, I'd be like, oh, that's pretty.
It is a bit different in person.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I've never been in the parking lot and looking at it.
It could be from where it's so big, that could probably be very intimidating as well.
It's very ominous when you're actually standing there looking at the building. Like I said, man, it did make me feel a little different. And so like I said, being a skeptic person, I'm excited to go inside. Like, But I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen if because there's reports of doors slamming. You can hear people screaming. Lights or orbs appearing, which I mean, I've taken pictures and got orbs in them. I'm always like, oh, it must be a reflection off something.
Dust.
Dust on the camera lens, whatever. But then you got the toys rolling, like you said, rolling out into the hallway. Balls of light that float through the hallways. Ghostly apparitions, even. I mean, so if
And
I
the thing
see any
is,
of the
like,
above, I might be out. But
Dude, now I have read that there's people, and I'm not trying to scare you because I'm a critic of it also. However, I don't want to welcome stuff like that in my life. And what I'm saying is I've read and I've listened to podcasts of people that have went in there and investigated, and a woman has followed them back home, spirit wise.
yeah, well, that content just got threw out the window. I ain't bringing nobody home with me.
I already got 6 people in my house. Can't have no more.
Now, she gonna live with me. She better get a job.
I have heard that that's actually a very common thing that happens with Trans-Allegheny.
I've
I've
always
also heard that, and this is gonna sound bad, but that happens a lot more towards skeptics, believe it or not.
Oh well, I believe 100%. But no,
Because I guess I don't know if it's just something about that energy that that attracts them more, or what it is.
I feel like maybe as a skeptic, you're actually wanting to see something, so maybe you're more inviting.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like,
You're
I've
gonna
always-
add it on more.
Yeah,
I have a cousin that's really big into this ghost hunting and stuff, and she's told me one time, like if you just completely shut your mind off to it, say it's not real, then you're probably not going to see anything. It's when you want to believe you're giving that inviting.
see, but that makes me more skeptical.
Exactly, because then, like, your eyes may play tricks on you. And I'm not discrediting anything at Trans-Allegheny, because there has been so much stuff that I've heard that, and you know what? I know we're focusing on, like, the folklore of it. Like, let's just be real. It's not really folklore, the treatment and the brutality that took place there. And when you have tortured souls, that's all they've known their entire being, or human form being. Why else wouldn't they stay there and give it back? I mean, I read it one time, there's been people that would work there, even as tour guides, that would just like, nope, I can't work there no more, because they would just get this overwhelmingly feeling of guilt and fear, to the point where then they go home, they feel like somebody is there at their house watching them. And this is up until today,
Yeah.
that, because you got to think, man, these people that were patients there, they were ridiculed more than likely. They were constantly stared at. And what are we doing by going in there and touring their home? We're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I believe 100% what people say that they've heard and saw. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and discredit anybody. But when we do go to make content there, I am going to be open, to, like, okay, like, this is one of the most haunted places in the United
I feel like
States.
you gotta have a very strong respect for where you're about to walk into if you go there.
Yeah, I do already, and I'm not even there yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like that it'll be one of those things that, but at the same time, you're going to be kind of psyched out in your head. So anytime you hear any kind of little noise,
I mean, the reality is that's a 100+ year old, like probably at this point, it's 150 years old, the building itself.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point,
That's over 160.
yeah, I mean, so like if you hear creaks and stuff like that, I feel like for a 160-year-old building, that's nothing out of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah.
But, you're already going in there with this mindset of this happens here.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like having to have that healthy conversation in your head of, yeah, that can be explained, or nope, that door just slammed shut and you didn't feel any wind.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's a real possibility. I actually, in preparation for this episode, I watched, I don't think they were like major ghost hunters. They have a YouTube channel, which is really cool. I don't remember who it was, or I'd shout them out. But they were touring the area where the morgue was, and like they went in and one of the cooler doors pushed open. And I mean, those are, they're designed to be sealed, which I mean they are old, but I mean it just randomly pushes open. You know, that's pretty creepy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's just crazy to think like.
And the thing is, you never hear about, you know, they have all of these ghost stores. Like literally anybody that remotely does ghost hunting goes to Trans-Allegheny.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you know, one of the top spots. And you never hear or see them having the same two experiences. You know, if like everybody walked in and said, "Oh well, I walked into the morgue and saw the store open," you know, that may be a little sus. Then at that point, you'd be like, "Okay, well, why is it that every single person who walks in that happens to?"
Right.
But you know, you hear about that, and then you watch somebody else, and they didn't have that experience, but they had something else happen here.
Yeah.
Like there's so much stuff that happens, and it's so much different stuff.
Yeah.
That's the most eye-opening thing about it.
So another hot spot, if you will, for like hearing things or seeing things, was the treatment room where they actually used to perform the lobotomies.
I can imagine.
Because they would chain the people down or like put the straps on them, you know, the leather straps to perform it. Because like you said earlier, they didn't sedate most of the time.
No.
And that's where a lot of the reported screaming is, and they say you can hear the straps, like the buckles on the straps, rattle. You know.
So, with those straps, I mean, I can say this: I have seen these straps in person, and I have used these straps in person. And they're literally like this. You got a strap across your chest, your legs are strapped, your arms are strapped, and then sometimes you got strapped across your head, and you're like this the entire time. Just the thought of laying like that is terrifying to me.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. And then you got people leaning over top of you, probably being rude and grabbing you and jerking you, and then you see something coming towards your eye,
and you can't do anything.
You can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
I do know that another one of the big hot spots there is like where like the prison cells were. What?
Oh my bad.
Huh?
Go ahead.
But like they said, like, because they had like what he was talking about earlier, like where they would actually restrain like the more criminally insane and stuff like that, and your more violent offenders. They said that those are really big hot spots too.
Oh, I'd imagine so.
Because you know those were like some of the worst spirits that were there.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, there's the murder. Like, I've only shared 2 stories of people getting murdered and brutalized, and their bodies were missing for months. So if that's the 2 that got out, imagine how many people have died or disappeared there that nobody even knows.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of these people were just brought there and dumped because their family, or nobody wanted them anymore. Nobody cared about them anymore. And if they did care about them, they was embarrassed by them.
Yeah.
So did they even, if somebody just got murdered and killed and thrown out the window, did they even know?
I would say there's a lot of unknowns that have passed away there.
I guarantee it.
I mean,
they said. Well, I mean, they can't even keep accurate records of everybody who came in and when they left or how they left.
I mean, they say up to a 5-figure number of deaths there. So that's anywhere from 10,000 to 99,000 people vanished there. You know, so I mean, like I was reading about one, and this is also graphic. 2 of the more sadistic patients took a guy's head and put it down on the ground. They held him down, put their bed on top of him, the bedpost, and jumped on the bed until they smashed his head flat.
Jeez.
I mean, I'm sure that room probably
Got a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean that's brutal. That's a terrible way to go. You know, that's. But as far as like, I could definitely see the screaming, like being able to hear people screaming.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And probably door slamming too, because you know that probably the caretakers, nurses, doctors, whatever were there. You know, they probably used to slam the door on them people all the time.
Yeah.
You know,
because I mean, I'm sure there were some that were good that worked there. You know, but with all the stuff that was happening, I feel like they were severely outnumbered.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I want to just reiterate that back then they did think that was the best method of treatment. I don't necessarily think that they were being malicious.
I don't know, man.
Oh yeah, I mean it's true.
here, the wild thing is that you guys were talking about how it was designed in a V shape to get as much sunlight in because they said that was one of the best things for mental illness, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's weird that they say that because recent studies and stuff have actually showed that I know that people make jokes about seasonal affective disorder, but it's a legitimate thing. People that live in West Virginia or other environments where you don't get as much sunlight in the wintertime end up getting really depressed and they stay down and stay gloomy and they said that's also part of the reason why suicide rates are so high around the holidays because the holidays are during those times. Like in addition to the stress of the holidays, they said that's a contributing factor. And now they sell like sunlight lamps that actually is supposed to emulate sunlight.
Sorry.
So, it's crazy that they at least had that much knowledge to where they knew, that is a legitimate factor that does play into mental health.
Well, the premise behind it, like building this lunatic asylum, was a good premise. Like
Right.
the guy that, I think it was actually a female, that come up with it really wanted to help. And they had a good plan, and then it started getting overcrowded, and then you have the turnover, then you have, just the
Short staff.
just the short staff, then sanitation has a problem, and then it's just a big swirling,
Yeah.
just a lot of stuff that just was supposed to go right went wrong, and you see that, and it's terrible.
It is. But I mean, then another happening there. There was a man that has communicated also with ghost hunters. His name was Jesse. He had a heart attack and died in a bathtub. So part of his folklore story is that the bathtub, sometimes people will come in and there'll be water in it, and there's no, obviously at this point, there's no water in the building. And then like you can see like fingerprints on the side of it, they say. So I mean, there's a lot of things there that happen that we'll see if we see any of it to follow up with this episode.
No, there will definitely be a follow up. Now, if they're allowed, we don't know the rules of recording and videography and everything in there. So
I mean, I would say they allow it.
I think they're pretty.
There's a
open to
ton
it.
of YouTube videos.
They encourage a lot of it.
Yeah.
And they'll even share pictures and videos and stuff like that. Like if somebody posts like, we saw this at Trans-Allegheny, they're good about sharing it even.
Yeah, because I mean, they do a haunted house thing at Halloween. Like, it's a big deal. So that just draws people to it.
Yeah, that's free publicity.
yeah, it's true. Now, with that being said, I know we focused on a lot of gory issues surrounding this this hospital, this lunatic asylum, if you will, and that is how mental health patients were handled back then. So with that being said, I do want to openly say that if you are struggling with mental health issues or anything like that, man, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody. Us three included do have mental health issues. Reach out. That's the best thing you do is talk about it. If you feel like you're alone, you're not. There's somebody out there for you, man. So I just want to stress that part. I just want to stress that part out a lot, that there is somebody there for you. You are the reason somebody smiles. Okay, you are the reason somebody smiles. So don't ever feel like you're alone.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Everybody matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it gets to that point and you don't have anybody else to talk to, there's a line for that. It's 988 now. Give it a call. Give it a text if you need somebody like that. Okay. I think that was a great episode into the Trans-Allegheny. If you guys like episodes like this, comment, let us know, send us a message.
Yeah,
If you
definitely.
don't like
everything.
it, let us know.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, there's so much history behind this place. I mean, we could make a 4-hour episode on just this.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
But this
It's
is just
still not even scratching the surface.
So I mean,
realistically.
we could do a part 2 to this episode, but this is just one episode in our mini-series that we're giving a shot because of the feedback we did get for West Virginia folklore kind of haunting type things,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
So with that, y'all ready?
Yeah.
So with that being said, we're about to we'll be talking about a couple other West Virginia and Appalachian folklores this week, such as the Snallygaster, the Mothman, and the Greenbrier Ghost is all headed to you this week. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said, there is so much information on the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. We could literally talk about this for 8 hours solid. But we wanted to hit some of the highlights and some of it, just go over some of the history, because we're more of a history type guys, okay?
Yeah.
But with that being said, we appreciate you joining us on our folklore adventure, or cryptic adventure. This is top level content from the lower level. It's the basement. See y'all later.
Take it easy.
Later.